Hi, everyone. I promised to follow up and complete the session from yesterday. Ran out of time. Apologies about that. And I wanted to make sure that everyone got the chance to leave at 5:30 to, do the really important stuff like be with family and everything else. So I hope that's okay. So I'd like to finish off the rest of the session. This should only last about 10, 15 minutes, but I am going to go through it because I want to feel duty bound to impart the rest of this. And if you have any questions, please fire them back and I'll follow up with something separate for that. So I'm just going to go on to shared screen, pretty much where we finished off yesterday. And I really enjoyed Rebecca Stringer's session on data. It was great to know that AIDA, A-I-D-A, is still in place. Lisa, well done for that. And Jules, I hope you're laughing right now because yes, she is right-handed, and that may well be why she's got her coffee cup between her and the gentleman sat opposite. I do still contend it is a barrier, and so whether she's doing that consciously or unconsciously, it's still a thing. It's still a barrier, and the gentleman still has got his arm, and I'm not going to say invading her space, but it's still close. There is still something to be observed in that. Anyway, so here we go. Mirroring establishes rapport. And the reason that's important, if people feel at ease with you, if there's that bond of trust between you, they're going to be, they're likely to just be more open in communication, tell you stuff they may not tell the opposition. And that puts you in a better place to make a better recommendation, which has to be good for both parties. So we've already said that. And it's mainly non-verbal, but as I also alluded to yesterday, some of it is verbal, and there's loads of research around to sort of say what the percentage is, and I'm sure it's different every time. But just the same as we don't have an awful lot of body language on video calls, you can only see me from here up and everyone else as well, a little bit of hand gestures. So you have to make use of what's in front of you. My facial expressions, everyone else's facial expressions, the intensity that I'm speaking. And I recognize, by the way, that I'm speaking probably a little bit faster, probably a little more intense, because this is just a one-on-one communication, not a group-wide session. So I feel I'm having to perhaps compensate for that to try and keep you engaged. And that's one of the ways that it can manifest itself as well. Okay, so the however, if you remember, is don't overdo the mirroring because it can be, frankly, a bit creepy. Okay, so just to, what are the principles again? High gain questions. Don't waste any questions. Ask questions which are going to take you further forward in the discovery process, excuse me, and help you make those excellent recommendations. So listening in the right proportion, and it's going to be different for everyone. So, but what it shouldn't be is 90-10, which is a process that I got stuck into, which meant that I knew everything, but I didn't have enough time to offer any value back. And that cost me, it cost me business because I never won as much business as perhaps I should have done had I perhaps asserted myself a little more in the conversation. But when I do speak, add some value. So let's take 75-25 as the optimum listen to talk ratio, and then you can vary it according to your own style, and more importantly, according to the client's needs or the prospect's needs. So always be asking yourself, can you actually solve their problem? Most people are going to be speaking to you because they've got a problem that needs solving, and you want to know all about that problem, how it manifests itself, all the rest of it, as we talked about yesterday, can you actually solve their problem? And if you can't solve their problem, it's best to get no early. We talked about lead generation, just getting the right kinds of leads. When I ran call centers for a big six energy provider, when I first went in there and I got asked statistics for how productive are we, I found out that we were making lots and lots of phone calls, but and if you've ever received a phone call from an Eon or InPower or someone like that, they can go on for a long, long time, and then you find out at the end of the call, oh, we can't sign you up as a customer because we need a direct debit, or you're not spending enough money, or something like that. So that was the point of getting no early in the conversation, so we didn't waste any of our people's time, and as importantly, we didn't waste any time of our prospects, because that can have negative, people can feel negatively about your brand if you go on a long sort of flirtation, if you like, if we can liken this to dating, and sometimes we can, and then you find out actually the relationship's not going to work. You can't deliver what the other party needs. So let's shut it down early. We're all over 18, all of that. And let's kind of move on. Okay, right. So, and can you delight? So not just can you deliver it ish, but can you actually delight the customer so that they become not just a customer, but a fantastic customer for you? I'll talk more about that in masterclass number 7, the final one, which is maximizing. And also, if you can only deliver a bit of it, how do you go about doing that? We're going to talk about that next week in Pursuit Strategy. It's a strategy called fractional. So you're delivering just a part of it. And going back to that mantra, there's one thing worse than no business, it's bad business. So really understanding what the client wants. If you can only deliver a bit of it, will they accept that? Or do they only want to talk to people that can deliver the whole thing? That's where we're going with that. Okay, and then feedback, the notion of buying signals, which I'm guessing pretty much everyone who's watching this has heard of that term, but what does it really mean? And I'll be talking about that next week in Pursuit Strategy, but also in Negotiate and Close the week after in the when you're in the negotiation and close sort of segment of the sales process, if you like. And then asking for the order, that's a high gain question, because the feedback that you get from that question determines how you're going to move forward. Do you have to step back, and all the rest of it? We'll talk about that in masterclass number 6. Okay, right. So size of the prize. So if we win this, what are we going to win? I remember one time I was doing a course on negotiation, and Natalie, the person that was running the course, basically had a small conference room, probably big enough to accommodate 6 people around a conference table, and there was just me, Natalie, and one other person, and she made me and my colleague sit in diagonally opposite corners of the room, facing the wall, so we couldn't see what the other person was doing, and we had to bid for a £1 coin. But no other rules. All we had to do was bid for a £1 coin, and there was no speaking. I had to write down my bid for a £1 coin, and I would give it to Natalie, and she would walk over to the other side, only about 10 paces, give it to the other person, and they would respond to that bid. And so I wrote down, well, I'm going to bid 50 pence for that £1 coin, and I gave it a piece of paper, and the other person came back and they were going to bid 70 pence for that £1 coin. Well, I came back saying, well, I'm going to bid 90 pence for it. Came back, they were going to bid £1. I'm going to short circuit this story. I ended up bidding £12 million for this thing. And if you remember what that thing was, it was a £1 coin. And so now that's a ridiculous example, but it actually happened in the heat of the moment. This is the point. In the heat of the moment, I'd lost sight of what the win was. And all I focused on was winning. That's the big mistake many people make when they're trying to do deals with customers. They actually lose sight of what it is they're winning. So the point of this sort of slide that you're looking at right now is to keep your eye on the size of that prize. Is it sort of big enough to keep you interested in it? Is it too small for whatever reason, in which case we shut it down professionally? Is it too big, in which case we might need to partner with someone else, or again, walk away professionally because it's not the right fit for us? Remember, we have a business to protect. So keep your eye on the size of the prize, and potentially upselling. So if it is what you're interested in, maybe you've got something else in your tool chest, your arsenal. In other words, do you want fries with that? Is there something else that could go with it? If you're in the art business, maybe you're going to arrange a nice dinner afterwards with the client so that you can not just walk away from the session afterwards. They can buy more of your time and chat over dinner with what made it great, and that improves your chances of sale and commissions generated through the gallery or through the artist, etc. And that could be a way to enrich your business, in other words. And if you're a channel sales director, Phil, I'm speaking to you obviously, then you might be thinking about, actually, you want to buy our software or whatever it happens to be, but actually we want to implement it, we want to support it for a 3-year term, which is the equivalent of, do you want fries with that? That's where I'm going. Now, this seems really obvious, but when you're perhaps in the heat of it, you're so focused on winning that you actually forget what it is you're trying to win or what you're trying to achieve in working that opportunity. And similarly with donors, really what you're after, you've just got to think about that with your corporate sort of clients. Okay, and we'll be talking about who needs to say yes, who shouldn't be saying no, and what if after all of that you lose the deal? How do you protect your career from that? Because sometimes that can happen. Okay, right. We'll talk more about that. Excuse me. I will talk more about that next week in Pursuit Strategy. And I'm really looking forward to delivering that as well. Now, some of you may recognize this person, and this is a really important point around customers and opportunity and things like that. And will they actually part with their money? This is a guy called Zig Ziglar, which some people will recognize as being the master of all salespeople. I'm not going to go into Zig's history necessarily. You can read that up, but he basically said the fear of loss is greater than the desire for gain. And that means different things to different people, but at its heart, I believe, is we will pay a bit of money to protect what we've already got, and life assurance is a case in point. So we'll pay a bit of money to protect, to preserve what we've already got, as opposed to, I don't know, spending some money of equal value, which will give us, I don't know, a new car for the same amount of money on a per month basis, something like that. We will protect what we've already got. Car is possibly the wrong example, particularly for men, and particularly men in particular love cars. I don't know why that is. I'm not suggesting women don't or anything like that. But anyway, the point is, the fear of loss is greater than the desire for gain. And an economist called Kahneman referred to that as loss aversion, which is a more polite way, or perhaps a more academic way of saying that we just don't want to lose what we've already got. That really feels like we're going in reverse as opposed to going forward. Okay. So some top tips in terms of our communications. Again, we've got to help the client to relax, build rapport, focus on what's being said, or maybe even not what's not being said or only partially said, and your skill as the salesperson, as the fundraiser, as the business person, is to try and get more of an understanding of what the person sat opposite you or the panel sat opposite you is trying to achieve. So and when the other person speaks, as we've been talking about, i.e. it's quiet, there's silence, doesn't necessarily mean they've stopped talking. So look for verbal clues as to whether they have stopped talking. Perhaps they sit back in their seat and fold their arms, or they look wantingly at you, wanting you to go next. I've finished my point, etc., etc. Don't interrupt them. That's frustrating. Don't interrupt them. And if you're on a Zoom call, such as we are now, you're looking at this video, then don't talk over the top of them, because your audio waves will clash with their audio waves and you will both sound like Daleks, and that could be really frustrating. So if you want to encourage them to speak, just nod or shake your head or in line with what they're talking about. But encouraging them to speak more, to articulate more about their issue. So listen to the tone of the voice. Are they going up in terms of asking questions, going down to deliver points, and use that yourself? Again, that could form part of a mirroring strategy. Be careful how you use that, and sparingly, as we've already suggested, but listen to the tone of voice, because we don't have full body language either. Okay, so wait, watch for all those what we call non-verbal clues like gestures, facial expressions, etc., etc. And sense check. Is what's going on moving you both in the right direction? And if not, what action are you going to take to perhaps bring the conversation back to the central issue, which is what encouraged the meeting to take place in the first place? Okay, so wrapping up then, being a great communicator is listen with an intent to understand, build that rapport. We looked at the Wolf of Wall Street phone call in the beginning part of the masterclass, the rapport that Leo DiCaprio built just in a few seconds, asking a question, soliciting engagement from the person on the other side. Again, helped to build that rapport early so that he could land the sales messages onto the back of that, because trust, rapport had already been built. So processing information. Somebody yesterday, I think it might have been Jules, talked about, or Emily, I think it was, that people look up sometimes when they're thinking, and that's true. So on that, if someone's thinking about what you're saying, they'll generally look up and to the left, because that corresponds with the side of the brain that's doing all the processing of what you've just been talking about, the ideas that you've just been conceptualizing with them. They're thinking about it. That's not the only clue. That people respond in different ways, but mainly up and to the left is going to indicate that they're thinking about what you've said, what you've just been talking about. Now, if they're talking and looking down, might suggest that they're lying. Looking down is typically a sign of shame, or at least in Western culture, it is. In some cultures, be careful. In particular, I know this in Nigeria, there are some cultures where it is impolite to look the other person, perhaps an elder, impolite to look them in the eye, because it shows disrespect. So just be very careful. There are cultural differences that you'll need to navigate. The world is a big place full of lots and lots of really interesting people and interesting cultures. So just be careful you don't assume too much. Context is absolutely everything. So, and when you're speaking, make sure that you're improving the science. Say something that's of value, even if it's only to encourage the prospect or the client to keep talking. Use your mirroring all the time. Consciously be using it to your advantage, and learn to embrace silence. Don't be scared of it. Embrace it, because what happens next could be really enlightening, could be real gold dust for you. And don't interrupt the client at any time, and certainly no guessing. And if you are guessing, put it out there. You could say something like, Mrs. Klein, Miss Klein, I am guessing when you say we haven't got enough money for this solution, I am guessing what that means is it's unbudgeted. You don't know how to get the budget. Am I right in guessing that? And get some feedback. That's called a corrective response. So if you are guessing, tell them you're guessing and get some feedback on that. And you will have more information as a result. Now, I am going to show this video at the beginning part of next week, a bad example for how to bring communications all together. So we've got that to look forward to. I don't want to steal the thunder from that, because I do want to create some debates. I'm not going to do that here. Okay, so back to qualifying customer needs. Active listening. It's a conversation. It's not an interrogation. It's got to feel natural. It should be comfortable with a small c. You are with small c for comfortable. You are going to have to ask some questions which may make you feel a little uncomfortable, but budget or money is often the question that gets to most people. But we need to get more comfortable, more confident, more assertive in asking those questions, because we want to be productive and we want to do the good things for our employers and our clients too. Okay, so where is the customer's pain? As I look at back to fear of loss is greater than the desire for gain. Are they hurting enough to spend money on your solution, or are they just wondering how much it all costs? Are they just trying to get a price out of you? They're not going to do anything about it, or worse, they're trying to get a price out of you so that they can justify the price that's been quoted to them by their friend. We've seen that happening a lot recently. But anyway, we want to make sure that you're gonna get the business. Okay, so where's the customer's pain? Can you actually solve their problem when they disclose what their pain actually is? Can you solve that problem? If so, fantastic. The notion of taking a gift to the meeting, that's not a bottle of wine or chocolate, it's something, a gift that they don't know about their business. Do you remember we looked at the Tommy Shelby pitching to Billy Kimber, and he told them about the Lee brothers stealing money from the enterprise? And that was a way that Tommy Shelby was taking a gift. His gift was, yes, of course, the cash, which is, you would not clearly normally do that, but it was a bit of insight telling Billy Kimber, the business owner, something about his business that he didn't already know. That was the gift. Learning how to monetize. Do you remember we talked about sickness absence yesterday? Learning how to monetize that was costing that business £500,000 a year at least in lost productivity, and that was a problem worth solving. We put a number on that problem, and we can therefore justify that it's going to take some money to make that problem go away or reduce it significantly. All right, again, no guessing. Just want to tell you this story about Dennis. Dennis was a guy I worked with. He was the chief information officer for a large British bank, and based over in Canary Wharf. And I went to meet with Dennis, and we had a meeting, lasted just over half an hour, and he basically gave me a fishing license or permission to go and speak with some of his people about the software that I was selling. And I'd been working with him and his company for a couple of years when we happened to be out at lunch one time, and he told me this story about 7 minutes. And I wonder if this resonates with you at all. So he said, what he used to do is when he was meeting someone for the first time, he would have his assistant come in after 7 minutes, and the assistant would say, Dennis, your boss, Francis, needs to see you as soon as possible. And it was a ruse, and this happens a lot. I'm afraid to say, but it was actually a ruse. What the assistant was actually doing Francis, was coming in, and it was Dennis's opportunity to either shut the meeting down if he wasn't impressed with what he was hearing, or frustrated, or just wasn't interested in what the salesperson or consultant was trying to tell him. It was his opportunity to shut the meeting down, to say, you know, sorry, Julie, I'm so sorry. You know what it's like. The boss needs to see me. We'll have to defer to another time. And he'd have to shut the meeting down and go upstairs. Or if the meeting was going well, he would say, okay, Francis, thanks ever so much. I'll go and see the boss after my meeting's finished, if the meeting was going well and he was interested in what was going on. But that was his option. So what's the point? The point is, be aware that this stuff can happen. And that means limit your small talk, if at all, to a couple of minutes and get down to business. Respect the other people's time and make sure you're getting somewhere within 7 minutes. Otherwise, you're doing yourself and the prospect a disservice. So get down to it. Okay, righto. Okay, so where are we now? 7 minutes back up. We're not going to do that. Yes, and I've already told you about where I did not enough talking. I did too much listening, and that goes back to BPR. If you remember that, best possible result, getting an order, if you like, minimum acceptable result. In my case, getting a referral to one of his team to go and have a more in-depth conversation. That was my minimum acceptable result. So be thinking about that. Okay. So right, I just want to tell you, while you're watching this, if you're still watching, knowing what you know from the main session plus this backup video, I just want you to reflect for just a few seconds on what you now have learned from customer meetings and identifying customer needs, what the customer really wants to buy. What one thing are you going to start doing or stop doing as a result? Now, you can't put it in the chat box, but I just want you to think about that and maybe even write it down. And if you, when you come back into the next session, I would love for you to put it into the chat box then when we start going, and we'll talk about that. I'll be thrilled to get some answers. The answers are different for almost everyone, so I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about that. So just reflect a little bit on what one change. Sometimes we can't make wholesale change. That's just too much. But sometimes we can make one little change to see where we're going. I need to start winding up now. I just want to tell you about the open LinkedIn event that I'm going to be running. It's brilliant basics. It's how to create a really brilliant basic profile for your LinkedIn profile. Some of you do this all brilliantly already. Others kind of not so. So I want to show you how to get more engagement around your profile, your message, how to create an engaging post, and all the rest of it. Some of you already got this. Some of you haven't. What would be marvelous is if you could let others know about the event on the 10th of May. It is an open event. It's not just for people on this masterclass cohort. It's for everyone, and I would love your help in bringing, say, one person along to that meeting or referring it, and that would make my day. Thank you very much. And the next masterclass cohort starts in June, early June. I think it starts on the 9th. I'll remember the date. And I'm going to be doing some taster events, which one or two of you have already been to, around the introduction to sales event. Again, would love your help and referral for anyone that you think would be interested in that, or companies especially in coming along to that, and I can talk to them about that. Okay, right. So next week, finally, we're going to be talking about a pursuit strategy, which is talking about just sales that are just a bit different to the norm. I'm not talking about business as usual, but it's strategic in some way. Maybe it's a really big opportunity. Maybe it's just really different, but you're interested and you just need to put more thought into what goes into that deal than normal. So I'm going to be talking about that. Okay, questions? You can either drop me an email, keith@salesmarvel.co.uk, or bring them along next week and I'll start answering them then. Again, follow me. I'd love for you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. That would be great. I put sales hints and tips up there quite regularly. Again, you subscribe to the website and lots of other stuff on Eventbrite too. So thank you very much for listening to part 2. Gone a little bit over, but I think I've kept it as brief as I possibly can do. Have a wonderful long bank holiday weekend, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next Wednesday afternoon at 3:30. Take care in the meantime, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.